Hey guys, welcome to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be drafting this dress that you can see on your screen. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. First thing I'll do is to start taking my points. The first point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 13 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waist point in front, which is 16 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my hip point, which is 24 inches. So after marking all these points, I'll go ahead and rule straight lines across. So I have the bust line, the under bust line, the waist line, the hip line, and the last point we'll take is the length of our dress. So the length of my dress is going to be 35 inches, so I'll mark 35 inches. I'll rule a straight line across and I'll label the lines. The next thing I'll do is to go in by half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches. I will indicate the 7.5 inches with a dot. On that dot, I'll go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll also indicate the 1 inch with a dot. After doing that, I'll slant from that 1 inch shoulder slope into the neckline like this. The next thing I'll do is to go in by my armhole depth, which is 7.5 inches. So from the shoulder slope, I'll go down by 7.5 inches and I'll indicate the 7.5 inches with a dot. On the shoulder line, I have 7.5 inches. So I'll make sure I have the same measurement where I have that dot, and then I'll connect the two dots in a straight line like this. After doing that, I'll roll a straight line across. So this new line is going to be the chest line. Next thing I'll do is to divide this 7.5 inches straight line into two, and I'll mark the middle. On that middle point, I'm going to come in by half an inch. I'll indicate the half an inch with a dot. On the chest line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll also indicate that with a dot. After doing that, I'll place my ruler on the shoulder slope. I'll connect from there to the half an inch that I came inward with on the straight line, and from there I'll connect to the dot that I have on the chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 4. The next thing I'll do is to take half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. So I'll go in by 4 inches on the waistline, on the bust line, and on the under bust line. You can connect all the way to your dress line. So after doing that, I'll connect the 3 dots into a straight line. The next thing I'll do is to take half an inch on the center front. I'm taking the half an inch on the under bust line and on the waistline. If you are busty, you can do 1 inch on the under bust line and on the bust line. Then on the side front, I'm taking 1 inch. So half an inch on the center front, 1 inch on the side front. If you are busty, you can do 1.5 inches on the side front or 2 inches on the side front. So on the bust line, I came down by 1 inch. I indicated the 1 inch with a dot, and then I connected from the under bust to the 1 inch like this. The next thing I did was to measure the center of my armhole. After indicating the center, I'll use the curved part of my ruler. I'll arrange it as you can see me doing, and I'll just connect like this to the bust line. After doing that, I'm going to take that so that the armhole area will not gape after sewing. So I'll go down from that from the middle. I'll go down by 1 inch, which is going to be the dart intake. On that 1 inch, I'm going to extend it out by 1 inch also. I'm extending this one out because I don't want to run short of fabric on the armhole area after joining my pieces together. So what I'll do is to connect from that point back into the curve that I already have. So we've taken the dart. Next thing I'll do is to now, since we already have the bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line, I'll replace the dart of 1 inch. That is the dart that I have in between the bustier area. It is 1 inch. I went ahead to replace it. So on the waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4, and I'll replace the 1.5 inches dart that I have on the waistline. On the hip line, I'm going to place my hip circumference divided by 4. So take note that I'm not adding any stitching allowance yet. I'm going to do that later. Okay. On the hip line, I'll place my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll also indicate that with a dot. So the same measurement I have on the hip line, I'm going to place it on the dress length without reducing anything. If you check the thumbnail we are following, the down part of the dress is not fitted at all. So what I'll do before connecting is to add my stitching allowance on just the upper body. So on the chest line, I'll add 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance, and on the waistline I'll add 1.5 inches for the stitching allowance. But on the hip line and the dress length, I'm not going to be adding any stitching allowance yet. So next thing I'll do is to connect the armhole. The one we extended is the new armhole, so I connected it to the allowance, as you can see, and then I'm going to connect the side from there all the way to the length of the dress. After connecting, this is what I have. The next thing I'll do is to use my marker to outline the waist. We are going to be dividing this pattern paper, okay? So we have the upper bodies and the lower bodies. So I decided to snatch the waist area by 1 inch, which is totally unnecessary, so you can skip this part. I will explain why later. So what I did was to come in by 1 inch from the mark that I already have on the waistline, and on the hip line I'm going to be adding extra 4 inches. You can see that the dress has a little bit of exaggerated hip, so I'll go out by 4 inches from the original hip measurement, and I'll repeat the same thing on the base of the skirt. Okay, so I went out by 4 inches. So what I'll do now is to use the curved part of my roller to connect from the 1 inch that I went in with on the waist area to the hip line to give it that effect, that curvy effect that we are looking for. So after curving like this, I'll connect straight down to the length of the skirt. So if there's any sharp edge on the pattern paper or your fabric, you're going to go ahead and blend it. Okay, so I'll also outline the length of my dress, so when cutting I know I'm going to cut from this particular line. So I'll connect this side using my marker to make it more visible, and I'll blend the sharp edge on the waist area. So after doing that, this is what I have. Next thing I'll do is to go in on the shoulder area by 1 inch. This 1 inch is to make the strap sit really well on the body, so it will not be falling. So I made a mistake here. I was supposed to connect it to the first dart leg on the bustier area. I'm going to adjust that later, okay? So after that, I'm going to determine the length of my strap. So from that 1 inch, I'm coming in by 1.5. If you don't want it to be big, you can just do 1 inch, okay? So I came out by 1.5. Now I'm going to determine where I want the scallop neckline to start from. So I want it to be at 7 inches, so I went down by 7 inches. Now all this design I'm creating with my freehand, I'll make sure it does not pass the 7 inches, okay, which is exactly what I am doing. So after connecting like this, if you're satisfied with what you have, you now use your marker to mark everything out. I also made a mistake here. The scallop neckline is not supposed to touch the bustier area at all, okay? So you connect upward like this because it's like a cut together shoulder. So what I'll do now is also freestyle what I want on the base. So it depends on what you want. The one on the base is bigger, so I just went ahead to connect, as you can see me doing. So just work your way around yours, okay? So after connecting that of the base, I'm going to go ahead and cut. After cutting the design on the base, I will go ahead and detach the skirt part from the other upper body so we can close up the dart, okay? So after cutting out, next thing we are going to do now is to close up the dart. But before I do that, I'm going to remark the neckline area where I made that mistake. I just looked at it and I realized it's not supposed to be like this. So I'm going to adjust the neckline area, okay? So like I mentioned earlier, the first line is supposed to go this way, okay, to the first dart here, just like this. So after doing that, I'll also connect the scallop neckline. So when connecting the scallop neckline, do not allow it to touch the bustier area because we are going to cut out the bustier area. If it touches the bustier area, there won't be space for us to join the bustier together. I don't know if you understand. So I'm reconnecting that part so it does not touch that line that you can see underneath it. So I'm still trying to connect from the center, but when cutting out, I already know where to cut out. So you have to take your time to do this particular part, okay? So when you cut it out, it's going to come out really nice. So after connecting, I think I messed this up eventually, but I know where to cut out. So now that I'm done connecting and it's no longer touching the bustier area, I'll cut. But before I do that, I'm going to go down by 1 inch from the bust line to close up my bust dart. So the 1 inch is the difference between my shoulder to my waist at the front and my shoulder to my waist at the back. So the distance from my shoulder to my waist at the front is 16 inches, while the distance from my shoulder to my waist at the back is 15 inches. So the difference is 1 inch, and that is what I'm using to close up the dart. So just look at the way I'm cutting so you know where to cut. I'll advise that you watch this video first before cutting so you don't make any mistake just like me. So I'll open up the dart area, the upper part of the dart, and I'm going to use it to cover the dart, and I'll tape it down. So the excess pattern paper that I left on the waist, on the bust area, sorry, I'll use it to complete the dart because that line shifted a bit. After doing that, I'll cut off the excess fabric. So we are left with this. So I'm going to start cutting the neckline. So just pay close attention so you know exactly where to cut. So guys, after cutting and closing the bust dart, this is what I have for the front. So what I'll do is to tape them together. So when cutting on your fabric, remember the center front is going to be on fold, okay? Make sure you cut the center front on fold and add half an inch stitching allowance all the way around this pattern paper except the side. So since I'm not sewing it, I'm going to just tape the bustier area together, as you can see. So this is what it looks like after holding the center and the side front together. So you know the center front is going to be on fold, okay? So now I'm going to bring the skirt part and I'll place them together. So this is the reason why I said you should not go in by 1 inch to snatch your waistline. So if you want to snatch your waistline, you're going to do that when joining both the front and back piece together. You can see that I have extra space here and I need to complete it back. So what I'll do is to add another piece of paper. I'm no longer snatching my waistline on the pattern paper anymore. I'll do that when I'm joining my pieces together. So I'll replace the 1 inch that I cut out, and then I'm going to pin it down so you can see that everything now matches. So you don't need stitching allowance for the skirt part or the upper body, so we've already added stitching allowance. So what I did was to use my tape to hold the skirt part and the upper bodies down, and you can see. So this is what you should have after drafting. The skirt part does not have any dart. You just cut it out and you sew. There is no need to add any stitching allowance anymore, okay? So this is what we have for the front. So the back is quite easy. I'll be using these basic back bodies to just illustrate all you have to do for the back. So this is your regular back bodies. I already have my darts. So for the neckline, I took out 1.5 inches. So what I'll do is to go down by 7 inches, the same 7 inches. So now you can go ahead and determine the depth of the back. As you can see on the thumbnail, the back is really deep, so it depends on you. You can decide to use 8 inches, 9 inches, 10 inches, depending on how open you want it to be. So for me, I'll still maintain the 7 inches. I'll just connect like this. So remember the back should have stitching allowance, okay, and then adjust the stitching allowance on the base, okay. So the next thing I'll do now is to mark the strap. So just like we did before, I'm going to go in. First of all, mark the center of the armhole area, and then I'll go in from this end by 1 inch. I'll connect it in a slant to the center. That is the point that I have on the center. After doing that, I'm going to mark the width of my strap, which is going to be 1.5 inches, just like the front. After doing that, I'm going to connect from the 1.5 inches with a little slant, as you can see, all the way. I'll leave it at 1 inch away from that 7 inches mark, okay. So I'll leave it there for now. After doing that, now I'll start freestyling the scallop neckline for the back. So you don't have to start from the zipper allowance. You can ignore the zipper allowance and then continue. And if you want yours deeper, just go down and just mark it out exactly how you want it. So after connecting, I'm going to connect it upward from that point to form the strap, as you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, okay, cut off the one on the other end, and then this is what we have. So you're going to match the front strap and the back strap, making sure they are sitting together. So the pattern paper for the skirt is for both the front and the back. For the back, just add zipper allowance to it, and if the straps are not matching, you can trim off the one that is longer, okay, just adjust it. You can even make this into an inbuilt corset depending on what you want. So that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like this video, leave your questions in the comment section. Before I forget, there is no sewing tutorial, okay? Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.